Welcome to the Make Your Voice Count to Google Plus Hangout series organized by the United Nations Human Rights Office. Today, in this second Hangout, we will discuss ways to ensure meaningful participation of and the rights of persons with disabilities. Let me introduce myself. I'm Wann-Hea, Senior Human Rights Officer and the Chief of the Groups in Focus section of the Treaties Division at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Joining us today are experts, policymakers, and activists from different parts of the world who work to promote and protect the human rights of persons with disabilities. I will allow each of them to introduce themselves in turn, beginning with Annelisa, please.
Thank you. My name is Annelisa, and I work as a policy officer in the European Commission in the Directorate-General for Justice. I work in the unit Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and I'm joining you from Brussels, Belgium.
Welcome, Annelisa. We also have Bhargavi, Davar.
Hello, this is Bhargavi, Davar from India. I am a survivor of psychiatric institutions of India and also a survivor of acute depression during my adult years. I'm basically with the Bapu Trust in India, and I enjoy writing and publishing in the area of gender, culture, and mental health.
Welcome, Bhargavi. I'll turn to Claudia, Sofia, Pereira, please, from Brazil.
Olá, boa tarde.
Hello, good afternoon.
Sou Claudia Sofia, sou Pereira.
I am Claudia Sofia. I'm a deaf-blind person.
Eu trabalho e represento o Grupo Brasil de apoio ao surdo cego e à deficiência multiprofessorial.
I work and represent Grupo Brasil of support to the deaf-blind and multisensory impaired people.
E a Associação Brasileira de Surdos Cegos.
And also ABRAS, the Brazilian Association for Deaf-Blind People.
Aqui em São Paulo, Brasil.
I'm speaking from São Paulo, Brazil.
Welcome, Claudia. Let me turn to Phuong from Vietnam.
Đến chị. Rồi, chị nói đi. Tôi là Dương Phương Hanh. Hello, my name is Dương Phương Hanh. Là giám đốc trung tâm nghiên cứu giáo dục người khiếm thính. I am the director of the Center for Research and Education of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing People. Tôi cũng làm việc như là một nhà tham vấn, người đào tạo. I also work as a counselor, a trainer, nhà nghiên cứu và thông dịch người ký hiệu, a researcher and a language sign interpreter. Nhà văn. I'm also a writer. Tôi cũng thành lập ra có quỹ hỗ trợ máy trả thính cho trẻ khiếm thính nghèo. I have also set up a fund that help the poor children with hearing loss to access hearing aids. Thay mặt là tổng thư ký Liên đoàn khiếm thính quốc tế, tôi tham gia vào hangout này từ Việt Nam. As a General Secretary of the International Federation of Hard of Hearing People, I joined the hangout from Vietnam. Now to move on.
Welcome, Han. Thank you. And last but not least, we've got Stikke Langvad joining us from Denmark.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm speaking from Copenhagen. I'm the chairperson of the Danish umbrella organization representing 32 single disability organizations. And I'm also a member of the European Disability Forum, the Executive Committee. But here I'm representing the committee set up under the UNCRPD, and as such I'm an independent expert on disability. And since Ms. Wann-Hea is sitting here, I have to say that I'm also only speaking on behalf of myself.
Welcome, panelists and experts. Let me also thank Ms. Truc from Vietnam and Ms. Vula from Brazil, who are assisting our panelists from there. Thank you both for your assistance. And of course, also joining us worldwide is the audience, all interested in persons with disabilities, joining us on this Hangout Live on the United Nations Human Rights Google Plus page and its YouTube channel. A number of you have sent questions and shared their views via different social media platforms, and we thank you in advance. And during the Hangout, you can also tweet us questions using the hashtag voice count or hashtag disabilities. Let's turn to the main subject at hand. It's estimated now that about 15% of the world's population, this is over 1 billion people according to the landmark World Disability Report published by the World Health Organization and the World Bank, that are living with disabilities today. And as that report reminds us, it is something that will touch every one of us at some point in our lives, whether through illness or whether through accident or whether through a member of the family or certainly with old age. These are rights that are relevant to all of us. And it is a part of international human rights law. It guarantees the right to participate in all the decision-making affecting our lives, including in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights for all persons, and more particularly on the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that sets it out in a number of articles, the right of persons with disabilities to engage in full and effective participation and inclusion in society. As of today, we've got 126 states parties to the convention who, by voluntarily ratifying a convention, have undertaken a legal obligation under international law to ensure participation, not as a byproduct or as a noble aim. It's not aspirational, it is a human right. Let me turn to Hanh. You've taken part in many projects on behalf of the deaf and hard of hearing. You've written several books about disabilities and set up a fund, as you mentioned, to help poor children with hearing loss to access hearing aids. Can you tell us a bit about your work and your experience?
That is a great question. I attended 2 international congresses hosted by International Federation of Hard of Hearing People. And I could hear very well by reading caption. I could understand clearly about the process and the information during the Congress, and that made me feel very comfortable to speak up my ideas and also to protect my viewpoints. And in my opinion, that is effective participation. From my own experience, in order to guarantee effective participation, the persons with disabilities must understand who they are and what they do. The persons with disability must be aware of their rights. And they must also understand what they expect from this participation. On the other hand, the society should also consider the persons with disability as an agent of change. So, in short, in order to guarantee the effective participation of the persons with disability, we need efforts from both sides, the society and the persons with disability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stig, let me turn to you. As a member of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that monitors the implementation of the convention, You participated in the examination of a number of state party reports. They continue to come in. Tell us the extraordinary story about the convention, impact on human rights, especially our notions of inclusion and participation of persons with disabilities, and of course any other examples that you'd like to raise concerning specific groups that draw your attention.
I think that when we're talking about the UNCRPD, one has to realize that it is about inclusion and participation, which probably is the most relevant and most interesting and most important issues when we're talking about the UNCRPD. Inclusion and participation is relevant to all spheres of society, and it has been clear for everyone during the last 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years that persons with disabilities are not having equal opportunities when we are talking about participation and inclusion in society. And if one wants to have a society where inclusion is the, how should you say, is the fundamental right for everyone, one must know that persons with disabilities must be visible, and we have to be able to participate in all activities in society. So this is not just about giving people something, but really making it sure that we can participate in all spheres and that we can articulate our desires in all parts of society. When I'm thinking about the UNCRPD, I'm thinking about especially the UNCRPD Article 7 on the rights of children. The right of children to be heard when decisions are made about themselves. And if we look into ourselves, how many times do we actually ask children with disability on what they think when we say to them, do you want to go to school or do you not want to go to school? Where do you want to live? What do you want to do? Who do you want to assist you? Who do you want to do this? Who do you want to do that? So this is, I think that one of the key elements is actually to know that persons with disabilities, regardless of age and gender, are capable of speaking on behalf of themselves, even though it might be difficult for someone to understand what they say. I also think that when we talk about participation in political life, it is extremely important that everyone has the right to vote. We know that not all persons with disabilities are entitled to vote in all countries, not even in a country like my own in Denmark. But it is not just about the right to vote, but it is also about the right to participate in political life, being a member of a party, be able to speak to other politicians, be able to speak to everyone about political issues. So when we talk about participation in political life, it is about having the right to vote, having the right to participate, and having the right to be elected. So when we talk about all these things, we can see that the UNCRPD does actually say something about everything. It does say something about what is most important, and it does show the way on how we can create a society which is inclusive to everyone.
Thank you, Stig. And if I could just spell it out for the audience who may not be so familiar in this language, UNCRPD refers to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Can I turn to Bhargavi, please? We've received quite a number of tweets and comments and questions pointing out that the effective and meaningful participation of persons with disabilities is still far from reality. So turning from the norms now to reality on the ground, can you tell us, Bhargavi, the experience of your community? What are the common barriers that prevent persons with disabilities from participating meaningfully in the decisions affecting their lives as you've seen it?
Right. Thank you, Wann-Hea, for this opportunity. I've been very active in the harmonization process of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in my country. And I have enjoyed traveling in the region as part of various disability coalitions, both national as well as international, such as the DPI. So my reflections come from this as well as our grassroots work in the slums of Pune with people with disabilities. Some of the common barriers that prevent persons with disabilities from participating effectively in decisions affecting their lives are mainly attitudinal barriers. There is the perception that some people who cannot do certain things cannot also make their own decisions about certain things in their lives. For example, people with disabilities may be allowed to make small decisions, but not the big ones. For example, managing property or marriage and so on and so forth. There may be the perception that some people with disabilities may be able to manage their lives on their own, but there are some others who will never be able to do this, that their disability is so severe. So these are some common perceptions that on a day-to-day basis, we have to address and remove in community life. Sometimes these attitudes can be generalized to a group at large. For example, there may be the perception that people with mental or psychosocial disabilities as a group do not have the capacity to make decisions. And such perceptions are upheld in the laws. For example, in India, you have, until the last count, you have over 150 laws which deny that people with disabilities, particularly the mental and the people with psychosocial disabilities, have any kind of capacity to make decisions in their lives. And considering that legal barriers are the highest barriers in the country, then you really get excluded from a range of things that you could be doing very well by yourself. Lastly, my last point is that because of the attitudinal and the legal barriers, there are few efforts to expand the imagination in terms of new services. The convention talks about living independently in the community. However, that can happen only if these barriers, these perceptions, the legal barriers, the policy barriers that some people are incapable can be removed. I will stop with that by saying that there must be extensive investment in creating new models of care which will address these barriers and allow people to live independently in the community and be included fully and participate fully. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bhargavi. For those that are just joining us, this Google Plus Hangout series is part of the Make Your Voice Count social media campaign for Human Rights Day 2012. The theme is about the inclusion and the right to participate of persons with disabilities today. And next Monday, we will be commemorating on 3 December the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. What a timely event. We are glad to be joined by Annelisa COTONE from the European Commission. The European Union is the only regional organization that has ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And Annelisa, welcome. Can you share with us the European experience in giving effect to the Convention and ensuring participation?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to join you today. Well, first of all, The convention has entered into force in the European Union in January 2011, and this is the first time that the European Union has ratified an international human rights treaty. The convention has been signed by all member states as well, and 24 of them have ratified it. So this is a joint undertaking, actually. The EU is a regional integration organization, and its powers are limited. They are conferred by the member states. So in many areas that affect directly the lives of persons with disabilities, the European Union has no full competence or no competence to act. To implement the convention, we have a strategy for 10 years. This is the European Disability Strategy 2010-2020, and this is our instrument for actions at EU level, but also actions that will support and complement the efforts by the member states. So it's a dual track of action. You have mentioned the issue of participation. Well, in the EU, we attach much importance to this issue. In fact, next Monday, we will also celebrate the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. And this year, we will devote our conference to participation. And we will talk about culture, participation and presence in the media, and we will talk also about sports and most importantly participation in politics, which has also been mentioned today. So our strategy, so what do we do to implement the convention? Well, meaningful participation of persons with disabilities in the implementation, monitoring of the convention is a key principle of in the text of the convention. And meaningful participation means empowerment of persons with disabilities. It means empowering the organizations that represent or that are made up of persons with disabilities. And to allow for meaningful participation and empowerment, we need to tackle several issues. One is accessibility, very important, because accessibility is the precondition to allow to have access to documents and to meetings and consultations, but also to have access to all areas of life. Accessibility as precondition. And therefore, accessibility is really at the core of our strategy, through different actions in legislation, policies, standardization, but also funding for research. Participation is also empowered through capacity building, and funding is a very important issue. And what the EU does, for instance, we fund EU-level NGOs, NGOs that are representing organizations from Europe in the member states. We fund them their costs, their operational costs, and one of the objectives of this funding is really to strengthen their capacity to advocate and to participate actively in the policy making and also in the implementation and monitoring of the convention. For instance, the EU has now adopted the EU framework for promoting, protecting and monitoring the convention. The framework that is foreseen by Article 33.2 and the European Disability Forum, which is a Europe-wide umbrella organization based here in Brussels, they will be full member of the EU framework. Yeah.
Thank you. And for the audience, we cannot stress how important the developments in Europe are, because for this convention, the ability of a regional integration organization to ratify the treaty is really quite unique to this convention. And so the European Union being the first and only so far to ratify the convention, now all eyes are on you and how you can make it.
Yes.
Let me turn to Claudia. We've heard a bit about experiences elsewhere. Can you tell us what your experience has been in Latin America?
Obrigada pela oportunidade.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Por estar falando pouquinho sobre a cegueira.
To talk a little bit about deaf blindness also.
E também da deficiência múltipla sensorial.
And multiple sensory impairment also.
Desde quando eu fiquei com surdo-cega adquirida,
I am an acquired deaf-blind person.
Eu iniciei um trabalho dentro do movimento político.
I started in a political movement
para poder ter a maior inclusão na sociedade e direitos como cidadão, qualquer pessoa surdo-cega de deficiência múltipla.
And her actions are always to ensure that people with deaf blindness and multiple sensory impairment have their rights recognized in our country.
Mesmo que há 40 anos existe a surdo-cegueira no Brasil,
deaf blindness is a disability that has been acknowledged in Brazil 40 years ago.
E depois, com a criação do Grupo Brasil de Apoio ao Surdo-Cego e à Deficiência Múltipla,
and then when Grupo Brasil was funded,
e a Associação Brasileira de Surdo-Cego,
and also the Brazilian Association for Deafblind,
nós conseguimos conquistar muitos avanços dentro do governo, do município, do estado e do governo federal.
We were able to accomplish many goals and achieve many successes concerning governmental area.
Também dando de motivação a outros países da América Latina.
And this also serves as an example for other Latin American countries.
Porque, na verdade, a surdo-cegueira aqui no Brasil é reconhecida há pouco tempo.
Deaf blindness has been recently acknowledged as a unique disability here in Brazil.
Graças ao apoio unido e ao trabalho em conjunto com as famílias, os surdo-cegos e os profissionais.
And that was only possible because we joined forces with the families of people with deaf blindness and multisensory impairment also.
Nós estamos conquistando esses espaços para que todos sejam uma sociedade inclusiva.
And we are conquering more spaces so we have a more inclusive society.
Por isso que é desafio muito grande para nós, servindo de exemplo a toda a América Latina, o trabalho que viemos desenvolvendo aqui.
And our plans and actions we have developing in our country is very important because it is also serving as an example for Latin American countries.
E também a sociedade está podendo reconhecer que todos nós, não só surdo-cego e deficiência múltipla, mas a pessoa com deficiência pode e tem capacidade de fazer muitas coisas.
And that also has been helping not only the deaf, blind and multisensory people with disabilities, but people with other disabilities to be acknowledged by our society as people who have their rights.
Por isso que a convenção é importante para todos nós aqui no Brasil e na América Latina, para que nós conquistamos nossos direitos em pleno cidadão e que a sociedade reconheça isso.
That is why we also believe the UN Convention is very important and it's guiding us to have a more inclusive society, ensuring the rights of everyone.
Obrigada por ter apresentado a minha experiência.
Thank you for letting me share my experience.
Thank you very much, Claudia. We've got a couple of comments that have come in, comments and questions. Let me take two for Bhargavi. First, the comment was that agreement with you that the effective participation of persons with disabilities requires a change of attitude. This is from Monjuru Kabir. We have a question now, which I'll address to you. Maybe you can give some insights to this from Drew Northrop from the US, asking, what is it like to have a neurological disability that isn't readily apparent to everybody?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that, the question.
The question is, What is it like to have a neurological disability that isn't readily apparent to everybody? And what I would add to that are responsibilities in that regard to ensure the rights of persons with such disabilities.
Yes, I'm sure that other experts here on this panel can say a lot on this, but my understanding is that the convention is silent on the definition of disability. And so it includes a range of experiences which are disabling, including neurological conditions that may be invisible, but may be experienced as disabling for that person.
Can I turn that also to Stig in terms of the convention, but also this new question that's come to us from David Rowling, also from the US. In addition to responsibilities with regard to persons with, the question was neurological disabilities, but I think in the language of the convention would be psychosocial disabilities. In addition to that, this question that's just come in is, what are some of the main oppositions that we find in countries to passing more laws that protect and give rights to persons with disabilities? Is it always a money issue, or do those countries have other reasons?
I think I'll first say something about the lack of definition of disabilities. And I think that it is important to understand that you cannot define disability because disability has many forms. It can be something that is related to a person's, to the past of the past disability. I mean, if you are well treated, if you have you recovered from your psychosocial disability, it might be so that persons still think that you are a person with a disability, and you can still be discriminated on the grounds of what I would say disability from the past. And you can also be discriminated on the grounds of disability if you are a parent or a relative to a child with a disability, because you can be stopped in moving up in the in your company. You can be discriminated by what we call association, and there are a lot of factors that are deciding on what disability is, because disability is not in the person but in the social barriers around you. And it can be something like physical barriers, it can be communicative barriers, and it can be attitudinal barriers. And even among persons with disabilities, we can find discrimination between groups of persons with disabilities. I mean, there are sometimes that some groups are allowed to have some kinds of support and some groups are not allowed to have the same kind of support. So the definition of disability is very difficult, and it is a dynamic process, but we have to think about it in many ways. When we talk about legislation, I think that there are a lot of reasons why we do not have the necessary legislation. But a lot of it is about attitudinal barriers. I mean, sometimes you talk to people about accessibility and then they say, but you don't have to make this building accessible because no person with disability are ever coming here. And then they think that it is not relevant for persons with disabilities to go there. But at the same time, they don't realize that it is perhaps just because of the physical barrier that persons with disabilities are kept out. And it is also about attitudes when we have persons who are stigmatized because of their disability, and it is done without any reason. So I think that the majority of the reasons for not having the right legislation is actually between the ears of the persons that are deciding the legislation, or the bureaucrats that are advising those that are going to take the decision on the specific law. But at the end of the day, I also think that the question on financial resources is being an excuse for not deciding on the right legislation. I mean, when we talk about accessibility, the bureaucrats or the politicians, they often say that it is costing a lot of money, and then they say we cannot afford it, and then they don't do anything. And they don't even decide on not making new buildings, new facilities inaccessible. They always talk about, oh, it is very difficult to change what we have been doing wrong in the past. And we also talk about it is necessary to put people with psychosocial disabilities into institutions. We have to force them into certain kinds of treatment, and not realizing that there might be other options.
Thank you, Stig. Thank you. I think that's a very important thing for us to take with us from this hangout. I'd like to thank all the participants here. There is so much that can be done, so much in the future that doesn't cost now, but it costs a great deal more to make up for. In that regard, in terms of making this hangout accessible, we've tried very hard to have it live captioned for the audience, but unfortunately technology is just not keeping up with our desires. It wasn't possible at this stage, but we will have captioning on the recording that's left on YouTube. So I'd like to thank each and every one of the panelists for joining us today. Afterwards, if you'd like to review, I'd like to invite all those interested in the rights of persons with disabilities to check it on YouTube afterwards. Keep the conversation going, make your voice count for human rights, and don't miss the next Google Hangout on 4 December, next Tuesday, about the participation of persons belonging to minorities. Stay tuned for more about our Google Plus Hangouts with the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Navi Pillay, on Human Rights Day, 10 December. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus, and search for the United Nations Human Rights or the hashtag voice count. Thanks very much for participating, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.